Hi, everyone, and welcome to this presentation of Speed Up the Publishing Process with Citavi and NVivo. I'm Silvana Di Gregorio, Research Director at QSR International, whose portfolio of software includes NVivo and Citavi. I am a former academic, sociologist, and qualitative researcher who has been using, teaching, consulting, and writing about software that supports qualitative research since 1995. I joined QSR in 2013. For this presentation, I'm going to start by introducing the two software packages, Citavi and NVivo. I will then talk about how they can be used together to speed up the publishing process, and then I will demonstrate how this can be done by starting a literature project in Citavi, showing how you can start organizing your material and take notes. Then move on to how that work can be integrated in NVivo with your empirical data, and move back to Citavi on how you can use its outlining feature, which links to Word, where you can start writing up. Most of you will know about qualitative data analysis software that supports the analysis of qualitative data. And many of you will have heard of NVivo. Over 1.5 million academics and professional researchers in more than 150 countries use NVivo. An analysis I did in Scopus revealed that between 2013 to date, 15,409 journal articles have been published that reference that they used NVivo in the analysis. I did that analysis with all of the top 4 qualitative data analysis packages and found that 63% cite NVivo over the others. Many of you may have used a reference manager such as EndNote, Mendeley, or Zotero, but you may not have heard about Citavi. What makes Citavi unique is not only its user-friendliness, but it is more than just a reference manager. It also allows you to take notes, tag quotes in your articles, and start outlining your article. It has a seamless link with Word, where not only will it automatically format your citations and bibliography, but you can bring in the outline of your paper with related quotes and notes, which you started in Citavi. At the top of this slide, you see a typical publishing process. Below, you see how that process is supported by Citavi for your secondary sources and by NVivo for your primary sources. If we start at the top and look at the publishing process from the very beginning, you would start with your literature review to collect your sources. For your empirical study, you would start collecting your data, whether it's empirical data, primary data that you're collecting yourself or that you're getting data off the web, etc. You would then need to organize both types of data. You would start, if you're doing both a literature review and an empirical study, with starting to analyze the literature, starting the literature review. You would be taking notes. You would do that also with your empirical data. If you're working in a team, you would be collaborating together, whether that's in terms of finding the articles that are relevant to your lit review or in terms of coding both your literature review data as well as your empirical data. And then you would move on to writing and citing and finally publishing. I'll just stop there and move on and show you Citavi and NVivo in action. Okay, so you can see that Citavi is open and you can see the list of projects that I've been working on. And I'm going to create a new project now. So I just click the new project button here. And you see I have a choice of creating a cloud project, which is really useful if I were working in a team. So my teammates can work together on this project simultaneously. Or I can create a local project, which is on my computer. And I'm going to do that. And this project is about the impact of COVID-19 on research. And click OK. So you see that the project is open now, it's empty. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import some references. So I have saved some references in a folder on my desktop. So I just tell Citavi that they're PDF files, and I just go to where they're located on my desktop. And yeah, here they are, COVID-19 literature. Select the folder and click next. And here are the files that I'm going to import. Click next again. So I'll select them all and click add to project. And I will also include the keywords. So you can see here are the articles on the left here that are listed that I just brought in. In the pane on the right is the actual article itself that I can read, make notes on. And in the middle is a column where the metadata is included. So here you can see the author, the title, periodical, etc. And I can arrange my workspace in however it suits me. So here I can just arrange it so I just have the article and the metadata, or if I just want to focus on reading, I can arrange the workspace so I'm just looking at the article and nothing else. Now, what makes Citavi different from other reference managers is this tab here, which is called the Knowledge Organizer. And that's where I can create categories where I want to tag parts of the article, which will help me when I'm writing up my article, like my final, whether it's a dissertation or a book or a journal article. And what I can also do is I can create an outline of the article in the Knowledge Organizer. So I'll start by creating a category, and I'll call this Introduction. And I can create subcategories. So in terms of remote field work, I know I want to look at the ethics of remote field work. And I want to create another category called Findings and Conclusions. And I can change these around, change the order, delete them, etc. But it's just nice to start with some kind of structure. I can assign some of the references to these categories, so I can assign the whole reference. So I know this first one is about remote field work, so I can just drag it there. Second one is as well. And in fact, most of them are about remote field work. The next thing that I might want to do is to think about what kind of task that I need to start with. I might want to check the metadata, because that's important. For each article, for example, I can create tasks. So there's a task tab, and I'll just create a new task, and I'll just say check metadata. And I can give my date. I'll just say today's date, and that's included there. And I might want to also, let's see, but I can see this one, it isn't quite right. That page range is in the page range. So again, in the tasks tab up here, I'll just create a task. And you can see that once I create a type of task, it remembers it. And again, I'll say I'll check that today. And to see what tasks I created, there's a tab here for tasks, and I can see the task planner. I can see that they've both been assigned to me. So it's possible if you're working in a team to assign different tasks to different team members. I'm working on my own, so I'm going to do all the work. But I can also create overall project tasks. So there's a tab up here for an overall project task. So here I'll say I'll have a due date for a draft report, and I'll say that due on 30th of November, give that high importance. And because I have started to work on the empirical side of this, I can say that I started that, click OK. So that's quite a useful feature that we have in Citavi. If I go back to my references, I want to start to read, and I might just go to do that. I just might change this around. So I might want to, here's some information about funding. So here I might want to, you have a choice of how you do this. You can start by just going through and reading the articles and just highlighting anything that's interesting. Or what you might want to do is, because I know that I'm going to have a section on funding, and this is quite interesting information, I actually want to create this as an indirect quote, in which case here I can give the indirect quote a title. So this is UK funding during the pandemic. And I can say that I can summarize. And I already have a category for funding. So I'll just tick that box there and click OK. So that's an example of an indirect. And over here, what's interesting, they talk about the platforms they used. They actually used Teams and Zoom. And in this case, I might want to create that as another indirect quote here. So I can call that applications used, and I can just say they use Teams or Zoom. And again, I have a category there for applications used. So I'll just tick that and tick that there. And you can see how these are hyperlinked. So I can always go back and see if I'm just looking at the quotations themselves. And I might want to sort of move on now to another reference. So I might look at this article here. Oh, and here's something about ethics and informed consent. And just for the sake of argument, I'll create that as a direct quotation. And I'll say this is about informed consent. And I'll give that the ethics. And in fact, if I want to create, I can create a subtitle here so that I can call that informed consent. And tick that box. And if we go down, so here we're talking about recording consent, and I can have that as an indirect quotation, recording consent. And again, I can type here that they had a variety of ways. Just click OK there and put that again into the informed consent box here. And if I just look at one more reference here, I know there's an interesting image that shows how they actually work virtually with a kind of a task that had to be done by children. So I would select this and say it's an image quotation. And so this is remote task for research. And again, under categories here, I can just put it under remote fieldwork. Okay, so you can see here, if I go back to my knowledge items here, you can see here, I can see them all listed. Remote fieldwork, there's that image I just created there. With the ethics one, there's the material I have on informed consent and applications used. And there's a bit of a indirect quotation that I have there. So you can see how while you're reading within Citavi, you can start pulling out the information that you'll be writing about in your literature review. So there are other ways that you can bring in literature into your Citavi project. So one way is using the picker. So what the picker is an add-on in your internet browser. So I do have an article I want to bring in this way. So what I'll do is I'll just move over to my browser, and you can see here's the article that I want to bring in. And to do that, you can see that next to the top here in the browser, you can see the little Citavi symbol. And if I click that symbol, I will be able to add this PDF as a reference. And you can see that it's importing the reference to the current project. And it says the references are on their way to the project. So I go back to the project here, and you can see here it is, all ready for me to read and make comments on. And you can see that it's put in some information here. Okay, so I think you have a bit of an idea of how you can start working in Citavi with your literature. And so I want to export these references that I have so I can work with them in NVivo. So I'll just click export, and all the references in this project, click next. You can see here the format is for NVivo, it's already in there, and save to text file, and I'll just save it into, so I'll just put covered references, saves it as an RAS file, and the export's complete. Then I would switch to NVivo. Okay, so you can see now that I have opened NVivo. And for those of you who aren't familiar with NVivo, I'll just quickly go over what's here in the navigation pane. It's divided into 3 areas: import, organize, and explore. Now, I've already been analyzing data in this project. It's research that I did on the impact of COVID-19 on qualitative researchers. So I already have in the files area folders for the different types of data I collected, and I want to create a new folder where I'm going to put the literature that I collected so far in Citavi. So this is a new empty folder. And there it is. So you can see it's empty. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to import the Citavi references that I just exported out. So I click up here in the ribbon on the Import tab. You can see there's an area for importing a whole range of different types of bibliographic data. And I'll just select Citavi. There they are, and click Open. And this wizard opens up. The one thing I'm going to change here is I actually prefer my literature to come in with the title, author, and year. And the other thing I'm going to change here is I want this wizard to put the literature in that folder that I just created for the literature files. And click OK and import. Right. So you can see what it's done is that it's imported the literature, and if I open them up, I can actually see the PDFs here. But in addition to bringing in the PDFs, it also brought in the metadata linked to the PDFs. So you can see here, there's a file classification called reference. Another way of seeing this is as a table, so I'll just double click that. So here are the literature and the table, and I'll talk a little bit later on how I can use this, find patterns in queries I can do later on. And the other thing that the wizard brought in is in the memo area. It created memos for each one of them, and it brought in the abstract, the keywords, and any notes that I might have written. So that's the import from Citavi. So what you might want to do next is to start reading and coding. I have the literature folder for coding open. As you can see, I don't have any codes in here. It's empty. But as I go through here, I might want to code this piece here as about ethics. So I can just drag that into the empty space for the literature codes, and I'll just name it ethics. You can see you can always write your definition in there. But what I want to show you is how you can jumpstart the analysis of your data in NVivo. One thing that I can do is to select all the literature just to have a quick look, quick visualization of the words used across them all. So I'll do a word frequency query, and so you can see it lists the words that are used the most. And to visualize this, I can click on the tab for word cloud. With the word cloud, I see the words that are used the most are in bigger font type, and also they're sort of color coded here. And obviously COVID is one of the big ones, as well as research. But what I'm interested in is in remote data collection. I can run a text search query for the word remote by just right-clicking over it. And I can see that the word remote is used in these articles. I can obviously go into the reference tab and see all those words there. But what I find more useful initially to jumpstart all this is to click on the tab for a word tree. And what the word tree does is there's the word remote in the middle, and it gives you the 5 words before the word remote and the 5 words used after the word remote. And as I scroll up, I can see there's stuff about remote data collection. I can see there's stuff about remote assessment, remote approaches. So that kind of gives me a quick visualization of how the word remote is used. As I said, I'm interested in remote data collection. So what I'll do is I'll just right-click and run a text search on that phrase. Right, and I can see the hits here, but what I want to do, I want to get more context, so I'll just say that I want to view it in the broad context, so I'll just run the query again. So this is just giving me more context, the paragraphs where the word remote data collection has been used. So I'll just save these results. I'll put it in my folder for my literature codes, and I'll just call it remote data collection. Click OK. Another way to jumpstart analysis of any data in NVivo is to use the autocoding features. I'll just select all of these. So here are all my literature articles, right-click and click autocode. And you can see there's different types of autocoding you can have. In a minute, what I'll do this, I'll identify themes. So what that's looking for is noun and noun phrases. I'm just going to do a quick look at what nouns and noun phrases have been used and use identify themes. So here are the top level words that have been used, and under them are the noun phrases. Bring everything in. I'll code the paragraphs where these phrases occur. And NVivo will automatically create a folder called Autocoded Themes to keep it separate from your carefully structured coding framework. And it just gives me some nice visualizations to just get a feel about the words used in the data. And so I can see research is the biggest one, not surprisingly. And then I can drill in each one of these. So I can see iterative data analysis is used, data collection process, data quality, and I can view the actual text that it's coded and go back to the home view. And again, it's just a nice way to explore, get a feel for what's in the data. And another visualization it gives you automatically is this table. This first column are the different articles. And so it's a way to compare differences in the articles. And where it's put all these as codes is, as you saw when I ran the wizard, is the folder autocoded by themes. So here is where I can pull out any of the coding that it's done and put it into my carefully structured coding framework. So at the moment, I'll just leave them here. And I just want to show you one more thing, which is a query which uses some of the metadata. I want to look if there's changes over time in some of these topics. And to do that, I would do a crosstab. And just from the query, I can see that, from just the little bit of work I've done is the only years that I have here are 2020 and 2021. So any of this material I can export out of NVivo. I can export this table out of NVivo, can export codes, I can export memos. So what I want to do is I want to export this code on data collection. So I'll just open it up and export the code as a Word document. And you can see that Word opens up. So here's the code that I've just exported. And if you see up in the ribbon that I have a tab for Citavi, and I want to show the Citavi pane. And this is the project, Citavi project, that I want to be linked to this document. So you can see that here are the references, and here is the knowledge organizer. And you can see that it's actually structured my whole report with, as you remember, the bits that I started to pull out from the literature that were relevant for it. So what I can do here is I can insert categories and knowledge items. So you can see how it's automatically brought in that structure. So here I can start writing my bit about funding and then citing Richardson about UK funding agencies actually created these rapid funding schemes. On remote research here, there's that visual. You can see this Bales article, and you can see how it's put in what the figure was, the title, and reference it. On informed consent, you can see here the direct quote from this article that I had put in. You can see this was my indirect quotation, my sort of summary of that, how it's formatted. And again, you can see how you would just insert here whatever you're doing. And if I go down to what I've done here on remote research here, I could add some of the material that I had coded in NVivo. So I could just cut this bit out of here, and I can move it up. That was Vales, so I can just add the citation. And creates at the bottom the bibliography. It's using Citavi's default style, but there's actually over 11,000 styles in Citavi that are there. I'm just going to use the APA style. Just refresh that like that. So that gives you an idea of how you can work together with NVivo and Citavi to ultimately write up your article or dissertation or whatever you're writing together. And it does speed up the process, as you can see.